At the turn of the 20th century, the Kingdom of Benin, in present-day Edo State, Nigeria, stood as a beacon of ancient African civilization, famous for its bronze artistry, architecture, and power. But in 1897, the British launched a brutal military expedition, looting the city, burning the palace, and ending centuries of royal rule. At the heart of this tragedy was Oba Ovonramwen, the last sovereign of Benin, a king who watched his sacred city fall in fire and blood. This is the story of betrayal, pride, and the destruction of one of Africa's greatest kingdoms. Deep in the forest of West Africa lay the mighty Kingdom of Benin, an empire that had stood for centuries, ruled by powerful Obas and protected by mystic traditions. Its capital, Benin City, was famed across Europe for its wide streets, advanced urban planning, and especially its breathtaking bronze artworks, crafted with precision unmatched in the ancient world. But in 1897, that kingdom would face its greatest threat, not from a rival tribe, but from the British Empire. Oba Ovonramwen ascended the throne in 1888, inheriting a kingdom rich in tradition but surrounded by colonial forces hungry for power, palm oil, and ivory. The British, seeking total control over trade, demanded that the Oba open up Benin to foreign merchants. But Ovonramwen resisted. He believed his kingdom was sovereign. And the Benin people believed that the Oba was more than a king, he was a spiritual leader, almost a god. In January 1897, British officials led by Captain James Phillips planned a visit to Benin, against the Oba's wishes. Officially, it was to discuss trade. But many believed it was a pretext for invasion. The Oba's commanders, fearful of a British takeover, attacked the incoming British delegation in what became known as the Benin Massacre. Most of the British party was killed. This act gave Britain exactly what it wanted, an excuse to destroy Benin. In February 1897, the British punitive expedition was launched. Over 1,200 British soldiers, equipped with guns, cannons, and warships, stormed Benin City. The kingdom's defenders, armed with swords, arrows, and muskets, were overwhelmed. The palace was burned. Sacred shrines were desecrated. Thousands of Benin bronzes, centuries-old artworks, were looted and shipped to Europe, where they still sit in museums today. It was one of the most devastating acts of colonial theft in African history. Oba Ovonramwen fled but was eventually betrayed by local chiefs and surrendered to the British. He arrived for his surrender dressed in full royal regalia, with a sword of honor, silent, proud, and unbroken. In 1897, he was exiled to Calabar, where he lived until his death in 1914. He never saw his kingdom again. With the fall of Benin, one of Africa's oldest and richest civilizations was dismantled. Its monarchy would later return, but only as a symbolic institution under colonial rule. The stolen Benin bronzes became symbols of what was lost: beauty, sovereignty, and pride. But the spirit of Benin did not die. It lives in the voice of its people, the memory of its art, and the legacy of a king who stood with dignity until the very end. Oba Ovonramwen's story reminds us that African kingdoms were not weak, they were betrayed, overpowered, and plundered. Yet, in defeat, there was still honor. In loss, there was still pride. And from the ashes of Benin, a voice still rises. We were never savages. We were a kingdom. If you were moved by this story, subscribe for more powerful African histories. Share this with someone who believes in telling the truth of our past. Because the story of Benin is not just a tragedy. It is a testimony.